Welcome to Operational Harmony, Balancing Business and Mental Well-Being, a podcast with honest discussions about professional life and mental well-being in a natural conversational way. Your host is Nikki, founder of Nikki's Office, where she supports entrepreneurs through operations, systems, and strategy. And now, let's hear from our guest.
Hi, I am Stella. It is a pen name I use when I write. I am retired and I tend to write short stories that are pleasure reads, not difficult, tough reads, just easy reads, I guess is better than a pleasure read is an easy read. And as far as genres, I do a lot. I have done a memoir, fiction, nonfiction. I've done romance, and I've done a little bit of fantasy, a slight little bit in there. I'm still working on that. But I just enjoy writing, so I just write what I write when I want to write it, and whatever story is in my head, I write it. And then I figure out where it fits in the genres, and sometimes it fits in more than one genre. So there you go. I have different stories about different things, and I tend to write a lot with a lot of truth in my stories about everyday heroes that are not named Oprah or Beyonce, but they're still everyday heroes. I know a little bit about you, Nikki, and you're one of them, but I haven't written it yet, but you're one of those everyday heroes. You have a wonderful story. Not a wonderful story, but you have a great story to tell. A great story to tell. I don't know, I may put pen to paper on your story someday too. I just won't use your name. But that's what I do. I just tend to write short stories. I just enjoy it. And wherever I am, I write. A quick story, I have a little 40-page story called The South Side of Heaven. And it's only 40 pages. And the inspiration for that one was when my grandmother passed away, who was also my namesake. I was sitting on a beach. My husband and I were traveling after I retired. We retired. And there was the first and only time in my entire life I saw a double rainbow in the sky, clear as you could almost touch it. It was a double rainbow in the sky. And it was when she was passing. And it inspired me to write this little story, to be at terms with her being gone and all that. And it's a cute little story. It's 40 pages. And you get inspiration from different events, and I do. And then I have it in my head for a while, and then I write a story. So that's just one example. And I feel a little scratchy in my throat. I guess I'm getting a little bit nervous talking to you, Nikki. But yeah, what else would you want to know on that from that intro?
So that one book is about grief.
The one that I am promoting right now is this guy here. I don't even know if it comes into focus. Stop Judging How I Mourn. That's what I'm promoting right now. Stop Judging How I Mourn. It's a story of a widow and a friendship. And Stop Judging How I Mourn is not 40 pages. It's about 170 pages or so. It's still an easy, short read. The feedback that I've gotten from people that I know, pardon me, Nikki, I have to drink water again and clear my throat. I'm going to mute so I don't scare everybody just for a second. Okay, I thought I could mute, but I can't. So you're going to hear me clear my throat. The feedback that I got from the story, from the people that I know, I don't know everyone who's read it, but some of the people who I do, you give it to a couple girlfriends and what do you think and whatever. And they read it and put it down over the weekend or on a plane ride or whatever. And that's the kind of stories that I like to read, a quick read over a weekend. You don't want to put it down. Then that's the story. A Widow and a Friend is a story about, it's based on all true events from different people that I know who have lost their spouse and some of the things that they went through. And I just decided I wanted to put a story together that would follow a lady who lost her beloved husband of 36 years of marriage, a great relationship, a great marriage, and he suddenly passes away. And now she has to navigate this whole journey of my life is now completely different. I have this new sort of identity. I'm now a widow. There are some social sort of expectations that go along with being a quote widow. What's the right way to do it to be a widow, and what are things that you shouldn't do or say or behave, things like that. And it just follows her journey of dealing with that onset of this change and the grief and the just navigating the whole thing, the whole loop, the entire loop.
We've seen a bunch of famous people in recent years get called out because of the way they were grieving, because it didn't fit how Joe Public thought that they should be grieving. You're not sad enough. Why are you crying so much? To be
And you're
honest,
absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And part of that sort of context is included in the story. And a big subtle and subliminal underlying is timing. Obviously, people need time to grieve and to mourn, but that time is different for every single person. And it's no one else's place to determine or to judge your timeline or how you grieve. For me, I lost my mom when I was 15 years old and she had six. So my youngest sister was 8 years old. She barely remembers her. She remembers what we've told her mostly, but I remember her well. Now I'm in my 60s, so it was a long time ago, but it's your mom. So looking back, and I didn't know it at the time, it's a trauma. When you lose someone, your mom, your significant other, it's a trauma. And a trauma is not the same as a paper cut. A paper cut, we can all expect it's going to be okay in a week or 10 days or whatever at the most, right? But a trauma is different, and you don't know if a trauma is going to linger with you for 10 years, 1 year, 20 years, and you just learn to exist with that trauma and manage it. But it doesn't mean that you ever just quote, get over it. This is the amount of time and you get over it. It's just different for everyone.
I know a couple widows, and I have come to the conclusion. Technically, I'm a widow, but I don't count myself as one because of reasons. So it didn't for me. But I feel like grief ebbs and flows. First of all, you have to be able to function. You still have to work if you're that age to still need to work. You still have to take care of your kids if you're at an age where you still have young kids in the house. Even if you're a teenager, you still have to go to school at some point. There are things you still have to do even
Correct.
as you're grieving. And if you have tears running down your face the entire time you're doing those things, people are going to be upset with you. If you don't have tears running down your face through all of those different things, people are going to be upset with you. And so you just got to do it anyway.
Yeah,
However
it's
that is for
interesting.
you.
I don't know. So for me, the first person that I remember as a kid, and I was thinking about this, and I think I was around eight-ish, maybe 7 or 8. And we were a poor family, and we lived in Northern California. And my uncle, his wife died, and I could say it was my aunt, right? But I don't remember her. What I remember as a kid is we were poor, and I say that because at that time they brought the body back to the home, and yes, and you put the body in the living room,
No,
in the
absolutely
casket
not.
in the window, so
Oh,
that
absolutely not.
so your neighbors and friends and loved ones could come by the house or whatever and pay in their respects in that kind of a way because we didn't have the money for the whole. Today, it's common and typical to do the funeral service and whatever, and you go to a place. At that time, again, I'm 60 now, 60, but anyway, at that time, as a kid, there's a dead body in the living room. That's all okay. So the next brush I have with death is when my mom passes. Now I'm 15. So there was some trauma already just from losing your mom. And then we had to go and live with my dad. This is a whole nother story, Nikki, but my dad had a wife and a whole nother family. My mom and dad were never married, even though they had 6 kids together. But so when my mom died, on top of that trauma, I had to go live with my dad and his wife, who didn't want us because obviously my mom would have been the mistress. So she didn't. So now you're not wanted. And I didn't realize it until I had a best girlfriend. So I was in junior high at 15 when she died. And the whole thingy. Anyway, what I want to try and get to is the trauma of it. It lasts so long. And in my case, I didn't know it at the time, but it took me about 11 or 12 years to really be able to just manage, to understand, to manage that grief. And my brother, who's younger than me, told me it took him about 17 years. He joined the Navy, went off to Japan for 20 years, blah, 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 blah. But later as adults, we talked about it, and he said, it took me almost 17 years to be able to just be okay with that because it was such a trauma. So, but in the time as a kid, you don't know that. You don't realize. And people in general, sometimes you just don't know how traumatized you are in the moment and how early on. And there are examples that I have experienced with people that I know where, no, you have to wait at least a couple of years before you can have fun or go out or have this zest for life again or want to live again or whatever, or take that black veil off and stop wearing black. You know what I mean?
So
I say that as a figure of speech, but go ahead, Nikki.
back in the Victorian era, they had those rules. You
Correct.
had to wear black for an
Correct.
entire year after the person died. You couldn't get remarried.
Correct.
You couldn't do jack all for an entire year after you lost anyone in your family, I believe. I could be a little bit wrong on that, but it's generally like a spouse, a parent who dies, someone you're close to, not like a friend or something. Them you would do maybe a month or two, but not the full year. But they had all sorts of rules about who you could go see during
Sure.
that year
Sure.
and all that. Guess
Sure.
what? Those people were still either grieving or they were done grieving by the end of that year. They were done grieving after a week because that person that just because somebody dies doesn't mean you have to mourn them if they were awful to you.
No,
If they
and
were
it
an
doesn't mean
awful
that, and it,
human being, it doesn't mean that you're going. Look, my mom was an absolute hideous monster half the time. She was a narcissist who was medically neglectful and who, I believe, hated me with every bit of her core. That is how much different she treated me than everybody else in the family. So when she died, I mourned for the space of time it took for us to bury her. And then I went back to Tennessee where I was living and I didn't talk about it anymore. I was done. Flipped my lid when she was put in the ground and the guy walked all over the top of the coffin. But after the burial, I was done. I was done grieving. I didn't martyr myself because my mom died. I didn't spend 12 years trying to come to terms with it. It was ding dong, the witch is dead. Yay.
See, and I think your circumstance, Nikki, and I'm no psychologist or mental health professional. Let me just say that as a disclaimer. Your circumstance is different. And
Yeah,
it's
mine is
unique.
different from
It's
a lot of
unique.
people's
Mhm.
understanding. I am
Mhm.
not saying that you should just not mourn because of whoever died. No,
Mhm.
I
No.
feel that way about my mother because
No,
of
I'm clear on that.
circumstances that I had with her
Mhm.
and valid reasons I have
Mhm.
for feeling the way I feel about her.
Mhm.
Did
I'm
I
gonna see
take
if I
her
can,
death badly at first? Yes, but I
of
got all
course.
of that out in that 2 weeks it took to bury her. And then I let it go because I was already mourning something and I couldn't spend the time to mourn her too because the other was bigger to me. And it
You
was a
know, your
special
circumstance, and I know what you're talking about because we've had the discussion, is a unique circumstance. And I understand what you're saying and where you were, and it's different. It's different.
Oh yeah, most people have parents that love them. Most people don't have the circumstances I had with my mom. My sisters, at least two of them, completely would tell you I'm lying about how my mom treated me because they didn't get treated that way. The
I don't
difference
even know how to
between,
respond to your
you know,
situation, Nick.
yeah,
It's wow.
it's unique. Not unique because there are plenty of people with my circumstances. There are
It
plenty of
is
people
unique,
who
but
have.
the word unique just isn't fitting enough because it doesn't capture the emotion that's and the toll and the trauma that goes all along with that. Yeah, it's something. It's different.
So yeah, no, my circumstances are my circumstances, and that's the thing. everybody is going to mourn differently. Your circumstances are going to dictate how you mourn for a person. You
Correct.
can love somebody with every beat of your heart. You can feel like you are dying and have a 2-year-old that needs you to not be sobbing every minute of the day and smiling at them and stuff like that, because they need that like
Correct.
interaction of a happy person, even if
Correct.
it is just a mask,
Correct.
because that's how they get their emotions met,
Sure,
their
sure.
needs met.
Because we're all more than one thing and we're
Yeah.
all dynamic as human beings. We're more than one thing. And at
Hmm.
any given time, we can be more than one thing. I have a girlfriend who lost her husband and she was younger. I think she was maybe in her 30s when it happened, unfortunately. And let me see, she wore this really cool short haircut, but a guy, her hairstylist was a guy. And not long after her husband passed, he asked her if she would be interested in going to dinner and just kind of going out to see a movie or something like that. And she was completely offended at the idea that in her mind, he was disrespectful, that she was still in a mourning period, that he shouldn't have asked. And those circumstances weighed into my writing. Without giving the entire story, because I think it's a really interesting read, the main character, Tina, as she loses her husband, the friend comes along and says, instead of you going into the abyss of depression and grief, which you're completely allowed to mourn and grieve, but why not do it in a way that you don't have to be in the abyss of depression? Why not let's do this a little differently? And it could turn heads. It could turn heads.
Yeah.
In this circumstance, it was like maybe he cracked the code because you don't know. People, not everybody comes out of that dark
Hmm.
place. And sometimes people need to be they need to feel and know it's okay to exist with grief, with mourning. You lost a
Hmm.
person. Of course, that's going to hurt, but it's okay for you to still enjoy life. It's okay for you to still be unperfectly a widow who's going to wear, like you said, a Victorian age dark dress and long clothing and keep the blinds closed and just be in hiding or become a hermit because you're a widow. That life doesn't have to end. And
Hmm.
if you're 30 years old and you say, okay, the standard is to wait 10 years when your husband dies.
No, it's not.
Okay,
If
I'm
you
just,
have young kids, if you get married within 6 months, everybody thinks you were cheating on your spouse. So I would wait a year. But other than that, there's no real definite things. But the whole getting into a relationship and getting married within 6 months, it kind of points to you's a hoe and you was cheating on your spouse, because there
so
ain't
in the
no
story,
way
there
you
is a
did that.
scene where she does get into it with her friend. They become pretty romantically engaged, and I don't want to give the whole story away. But the whole timing is conspicuously curious
Hmm.
intentionally. Because if I had written that he died 8 years ago or 10 years ago, that would be a little bit more, for lack of a better word, vanilla. Okay, well, she's had some time but I wanted the reality of us as humans and that we are not perfect. Not
Hmm.
everybody waits 8 years or 10
Hmm.
years. Everybody's, to your point, circumstances are different. It
Hmm.
doesn't give other people the right to make a judgment on that.
Yeah.
And she didn't love her husband any less. His memory was no less to her. She loved
Yeah.
him
There's got
completely. Yeah. And
ever
so,
and so if you look at a stadium full of people for football, right? You're going to see some people who just sit there and clap when something happens. You're going to see some people who just drink their beer or whatever, and they're not really clapping. They're just there. They're vibing, right? And then you have them people who are half naked with letters drawn on them and stuff, and they're like going all out. That right there is your wide expanse of what can happen at any moment in anyone's life. You could be, in one instance, the guy just vibing. In another, you could be like, yeah, yeah. And the next minute, you could be that super freak with the colors and the dyed hair and half naked
But
bare
at the end of
belly
the day,
out.
they're all humans and they're all
Yeah.
fans.
And some are just way too excited to be there. I am obviously not Mr. Excitable, okay? Just understand that.
See,
But
I
like
don't do.
they're
I'm not that outlandish with the letters and the
yeah.
bare chest and all that stuff. But anyway, I have had season tickets to a game and have experienced the whole
Yeah.
spectrum of fans who are, to your point, more reserved, all the way through the ones that have a whole outfit costume and
Yeah.
they're
And
at the
like
end
at
zone
any
and they're
moment
like,
of
yeah.
your life, you are one of those people. You are one of those personalities. Somebody who has a personality disorder, like I do. I have borderline, which means my personality comes from the traumas of my life.
I was gonna
Thanks.
say, yeah, you kind of like you probably need a personality disorder. You deserve one.
I have a very eclectic personality.
Yeah, just go ahead and
I
embrace it, Nikki. You've
It's it,
endured.
it is what it is, and yeah, it's a thing. People either like me a lot or they hate me a lot. So there's no in between, and that's perfectly okay. So you're gonna find people at every level, and I'm going to react. Look, most people can have somebody give them a hug, and they are like, "Yay, I got a hug." You give me a hug and I want to hit you. I'm not going to, but I'm going to want to because
Wow.
I don't want you hugging me. Why are you touching me? Like look, it's so bad that when I do give somebody a hug and somebody else notices it, their jaw hits the floor.
Wow. Nikki's
You
hugging.
gave them
Wow.
a hug? I thought you didn't do those. I'm like, it's my choice and it's a half a hug and I decided to touch, so it's fine. Can we not talk about this anymore?
Yeah, I know, right? Nikki, just a curious question, because I
Mhm,
know, and I ask you because in my trauma when my mother died, my best friend, you know how you have a best friend in junior high school, and we used to walk to school together and everything. And when my mom died, I had to go live with my dad and his wife, and along with two of my brothers. But anyway, I now again in 60s, and I spoke to her. We found each other on Facebook a couple years ago, and I said to her, something about, I sent you a picture, and that picture was at my dad's house. And I was describing the house to her because I said, you'd never been there. Because when my mom died and we had to go live with my dad, that's where that picture was taken. So I sent her this old school picture of me wearing some old school tracksuit or something like that, right? And she said to me, I remember the picture and I know your dad's house. And I said, how do you know? She said, do you know I came to see you every single weekend for almost a year when you went to your dad's? Nikki, I will tell you, on a stack of Bibles and whatever else, I shouldn't use Bibles, but on a stack of just whatever, I do not recall her coming to that house, not one time.
mhm,
That's how much trauma happens. It's an example of the trauma when people have loss and they're grieving, and when kids lose like that. I do not remember, and this is my best friend. You kind of would have a memory, I think, of her coming to see you at least one of those weekends.
mhm,
Not one. I had no idea she had even been to his house ever. And she was telling me things, and I was like, I didn't remember any of it, any of it. And that was part of the sort of discovery of realizing it could take years.
mhm,
And I know people go through those common signs. And my book, my reading is not the professionals who go through the stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, and all that. That's not my book. My book is just a story
mhm,
that you can read about this one lady's journey as she navigated the loop of this, and how you may or may not agree with some of her choices and decisions and the timing of things that happen, but nonetheless, it doesn't change at the end of the story. She loved her husband, she was grieving, she missed him, and all of her actions did not diminish one dot of her care for her husband or her past husband. It didn't. And it was just like, people just relax and let people be. We're all I hate to use this phrase, just use it loosely and see the joke in it, but we're all in one way circling the drain, and that none of us are going to get out of this alive. So don't be so quick to judge someone else's pain or loss or grief or whatever, and how they're mourning or how they're grieving or the timing of. You don't know
It's
everything
none of
that's
your
going
business. You have no look. There is that common saying out there nowadays, you have no idea what somebody is going through, so just be nice. You have no idea what that person grieving is doing to
on.
stay looking normal. You don't know what masks they are wearing.
Right?
I have to wear a mask on the daily because life is hard, right? But nobody wants to see you sad all the time because then it becomes a thing. So I have to wear a mask. I have to be present. I have to do all those things. You have no idea what's behind somebody's mask.
Right.
No idea.
Exactly.
You may
Exactly.
think you do. You could be friends with this person for their entire life. You could have been there. You could have known stuff. You still have absolutely no idea what that voice in their head is telling them. You have no idea what events that happened in their life have shaped them because it's happening in here. And that's not something you can see. It's not something you can read. It's
Right.
something that person is living.
Right.
And you're just along for the ride if you're a
Right.
friend.
You're absolutely right. And that when I was writing this, I took just basically some general situations that we can all relate to and just intertwine them into the story of Tina's journey as she did this. And the fact that it starts off with basically on the evening of her husband's funeral, the same day, someone knocks at her door unexpectedly. And that is the catalyst that puts her on a whole different path of, okay, am I just going to just be depressed? And how do you go through your husband's belongings to get rid of them and things like that? And so am I going to go down that dark, horrible, hard, terrible place? Or am I going to have a little bit of light and friendship and just a little bit and still be able to get through some of the things that I need to get through and manage some of the things that I need to manage, but not to taint at all what I had with my husband and the love that I have for him and all of that. It's simple in many ways, but I think the underlying metaphor is just, it's not like you said, stop judging. It's none of your business and you don't know everything. You don't know everything. Anyway,
So I'll admit I do. I judge people all the time. We all do, right?
I was going to say we all do.
We
I
all
don't think
do.
it's just
Like,
you.
and it can be perfectly innocent. Oh, that person is probably homeless because look at that what they're wearing, or oh, I like that person's haircut, or that kind of thing. And as long as it stays in your head and you don't come out with, oh, you look fat today, you're fine. You be the judgiest person you want to be as long as you keep it in your own head. Because nobody needs to hear what you're saying about anything.
Correct.
Unless it is, hey, I love your hairstyle. Let somebody hear that because that is awesome and they might need that today. I saw somebody with a cool tattoo one time in a restaurant and I was like, hey, you got a nice tat. And I just kept on walking. I wasn't doing it for anything. I just thought her tattoo looked cool. It was one of those ones with lots of color. And I was like, it looks cool.
See, and I see cool tattoos, and what goes through my mind is dual. It's sometimes you see a cool tattoo, and other times I think, "Ooh, did that hurt?"
I see some and go, oof, you shouldn't have done it with that artist because that looks really bad. I'm so sorry. But that would have looked better if you went with somebody else, probably. But yeah. But tattoos are tattoos, and some people judge, oh, you have a tattoo, you're the most evil person on the earth. I have a tattoo. I got it as a birthday gift that I didn't really want, but I was like told I had to choose one, and I still am a people pleaser, so I was like, okay. So I have
That's
dolphins
funny.
on my
I
leg.
have entertained the idea of a tattoo because there's a part of me that wants one. And I think if I had a daughter, it's oftentimes people and their daughters, they get matching tattoos. I only have a son, and he wants a big masculine tattoo on it, which that's not going to happen. I went and got a henna, a little dainty henna tattoo, because I thought, let me try it out. And within a week, I was trying to scrub that thing off in the shower so bad. So I thought, okay, I can postpone the tattoo idea for a while, especially once I learned that they do it without numbing. It's like, I'm
Some
so
of them nowadays will do with numbing, but
okay, that's good because I'm wimpy. I am like, oh,
it wasn't that bad. I was in a lot of I have super sensitive skin, so I really should not have gotten a tattoo. I have psoriasis, so about 3 days after the tattoo was done, it was covered in psoriasis because it's an injury type thing where it creates a hot spot for them, and it's duller. But if I go and try to get color back added to it again, it'll just do the same thing it did the last time, and so it's not worth it. But they're pretty dolphins, and they're not super, they're just line things. They're not super duper realistic looking or whatever. But so yeah, I have a tattoo. I go to church every Sunday. I'm not an awful person, I don't think. I have my issues, obviously, but having something, having art put on your body, it does not make you an awful person. What makes you an awful person is saying, just because you have that, I think you're an awful person, I'm never going to talk to you. That makes you an awful person.
Yeah,
Like,
your
people
own,
make
whether
the
it's spoken
decision.
or not, your own intentions and your own ideas are what ultimately will determine that you're an awful person, which I don't feel like I know any awful people. I just don't.
I know a couple, but they
Do
were all
you really?
narcissists.
I feel like I don't really know any awful people. And I really mean that. I
Well,
really
my
mean
mom was one, and her friend, who is a narcissist as well, was the other, and she's still alive. So she's an awful person. Yeah.
I might know people who might be awful undercover, you know what I mean? That a part of their life that I don't know, but
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of anyone that I've ever encountered that I think is just an awful person.
Most people don't meet that type of person, and that is a great thing for them. I unfortunately have met a couple because of how my life has gone. Do do I wish I'd had sane, loving people in my life? Sure. That's not the lot I was given, so I just have to live
No,
with
the whole, if everybody is just perfect. I didn't say I had everybody who's perfect. I
it.
just said I don't think anybody's awful. I don't think anybody's awful. Not that we're all perfect, because I don't, I never even
Nobody's
believed in
perfect.
perfection. I think we come here, we're perfect as babies, and then we learn to think, and then we get polluted by life, and there you go. We're all good still. We're good human beings, but I think perfection is another tier that I just don't ascribe to, and I don't try to expect other people to reach that. I don't know.
I don't either. As long as you treat me with kindness, or at least you don't act like I'm stupid, I'm good.
Yeah, I don't know. You have a different background, and it, like all of us, we carry that
Hmm.
with us, right? I have my background. I grew up poor, and we were on welfare, and my mom met my dad, who's married, and I was their first love child together. Anyway, and he had a whole nother wife, and then he had us in the same town. And the weird thing is, and this was my first self-published autobiography, and it's called Life is a Funny Thing. Because this was back at the time where people didn't, we were the bastard illegitimate kids, right? And people didn't talk about that kind of thing. You only went on Oprah if you had the perfect June Cleaver household. That was definitely not us. But had you asked me if it was dysfunctional, I would have told you no. And the reason why is because my dad was at our house every single day. We had Christmas with 6 kids, 6 bikes. He was at our birthdays. Yes, we were poor, and we wouldn't have had a car, but we used his car every day. We didn't live in, it's common to live in the projects when you're on government assistance. We lived in neighborhoods with working people because my dad helped my mother pay the rent. We had to move a lot when we couldn't afford the rent anymore. We were poor. But so I went to it's 5 different elementary schools in the same city because we had to keep moving.
I went to 20 different elementary schools
Oh my God.
in 3
Oh
different
my God.
states.
Wow.
My mom was allergic to paying rent.
Wow. Nikki, I already had your story at way out there, different from the off course from the norm, and you just took it a whole
Yeah,
a
my
whole
mom
nother
chased the
road.
Navy guys. I was born in Virginia, left at 6 weeks old, never went back. I have lived in or been to every state in the US except for Alaska and Hawaii.
Good for
So
you, though. In a way, I'm sure not all of it was happy, but
it was a lot of moving because even when we stayed in the same state, there was a lot of moving around because my mom either found a better neighborhood or she didn't pay rent, so we had to find a different neighborhood anyway, that kind of thing.
so
So,
now that you're an adult and you're experienced and all, she had a condition. She obviously had a condition, right?
yeah,
Do you
she
think
was
she knew
her.
she had it, or it was
Yes,
like, yeah,
she knew. She just couldn't change, was unwilling to change.
wow. That one I have not forgotten that story, and I keep a list of ideas for stories, and yours is on that list. I may write a story someday. I just have to keep it like, even though the title of my book is Stop Judging How I Mourn, the story of a widow and a friendship, it's not a downer. I don't like to write stories that are downers. So it's not a downer. It's a very pleasant read, actually. It's just a very
Mm-hmm.
pleasant read about following Tina through her journey. I was appreciative that when I did hear back from a couple of girlfriends, there's some emotional stuff, obviously, but even with that, they thought it was a really good story. And it was even shorter at first because I was going to make a book one and a book two, and there's still going to be a book two, but I was going to make it book one and book two in this original story. And a couple people called me back and says, no, you can't stop there. It's like a cliffhanger. I need to know. I
Yeah,
need
there
to
are some
know,
authors
right?
I would love to be able to call
Right.
up.
So
Say,
I had to
no,
finish it. I
no,
had to
no,
finish
you
that
did
whole
it
thing.
wrong.
So now book two is going to be something completely different. But I have book two in my head
Mhm.
already, not completely finished, but the centerpieces of book two are already in my head. So there will
Mhm.
be a book two. But yeah, it's not a downer. I like to write stories and I'll have to figure out, I have to think about it because if I do yours, I got to figure
Yeah,
out some light to that, Nikki.
yeah. There's not too much light.
I got to find some. I got to think about it. I got to
Yep.
think about it. But kudos to you for enduring and surviving that. And I do think that somewhere in there, a professional might say that she had a condition that was probably not addressed or treated or whatever. Yeah.
Probably. But it was her unwillingness that that kept it there. So, do you have any final thoughts on your portion?
On my portion, no, yes, in that I do hope that when I was writing the book and I finished it, I hope that it had at least, it's a simple story again, and it's a light, easy story. But at the end of the story, I do hope that the metaphorical meaning and the under the messages and that I do hope it impacts women in a positive way. And it doesn't matter whether it's women in one state or another state or in the US or out of the US, because I think grief is something that's relative around the world. And so I do hope that women in general, I think we've come a long way since the Victorian ages, but I think women around the world, I hope that in some cultures, it's common that if you lose your spouse, you can remarry, but with certain rules. it has to be within the husband's family line or something like that or whatever. I just hope that when women read it, that it soothes and gives them permission, especially those who don't know any better and who get caught into that cycle of feeling judged and feeling I have to behave this certain way, otherwise I'm considered unworthy or whatever. And I hope that it gives them just a nugget of encouragement that you don't have to stop living life and be depressed and all that because someone else is no longer here. You can still enjoy life. You can still feel, you can still love, you can still do whatever. Your normal might be different. It might be a new normal and it might be a different normal, but it's okay. It's okay. So if there was one thing that you said if I could add or I would want to, that would be it. Just the message that it's okay. You said it in the very beginning, everybody grieves differently, everybody mourns differently, and your timeline is your timeline. It's not someone else's timeline. Some people can get over what took me years, some people can get over it in a month. Good for them. It took me a lot of years when my mom died. But yeah, I think I'm pretty okay. I don't think I should be locked away anywhere. I think I'm okay.
Okay. So for the business topic today, we're going to talk about what nobody talks about: scaling. More clients magnify the cracks in your business, they don't hide them. Scaling doesn't fix problems, it exposes them. More clients, more revenue, more moving parts, all of it puts pressure on what already exists. If your systems, boundaries, and decision making aren't solid, growth will magnify every weak spot. Real scaling is about strengthening the foundation before the volume hits. So basically, say you have 3 clients, you have no onboarding system, you have nothing. You have not set anything up, it's all in your head, right? As you keep getting more and more clients and it stays all up in your head and nothing gets written down, the more clients you get, the more stress your head is under. Because you have to remember all of the different moving parts because you haven't written them down anywhere to be able to go, okay, this is what I do. This is what everybody has to go through. So, like when I get a new client, I put them into my Notion database and then I start filling in information. What are their socials? What is their website? What things am I going to do for them? That kind of thing, so that I have all of that information in one place. And then, yay, I'm not hunting for it all over the place. I have how much they're paying me, why they're paying me that much, so that I know where my brain was at when I decided that amount, and things like that, just so that I know where I'm at, where I'm going, and I can continue forward. If I didn't do any of that, it would all just be in my head, and my head is a crazy place to be. And we don't need to have my business only be in my head, right? I currently work with about between 8 and 10 people. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. And so if I was trying to memorize all of the information that I hold for all of those people, my head would explode.
Sure.
It would explode.
Sure.
Because there is not enough room in my head for 10 people. Look, they would be putting the I love me jacket on me. Because no, thank you very much.
I'm okay with scaling to some extent, and I think it just needs to fit in the right place. You're the round circle and the square. It's got to be square or circle. But I think you're right in that the infrastructure needs to be there. The infrastructure needs to be there. I've always thought, I've done a couple of smaller businesses and I've helped with a magazine before. And I felt like scaling as far as the pay scale in those situations was appropriate because the more volume you're selling, then the more people, that means the more work we've done and the more people should be compensated. So scaling from that perspective, I liked it. But to your point, if you don't have that infrastructure in place and you start growing and whatever, then you need a big giant customer service department because everything's wrong. There's too many
Mhm.
problems. And I always thought that was a good sort of a litmus test, so to
Mhm.
speak. If you don't need a customer service so much, then people must be doing what they're supposed to be doing, which says you must have some level of policy or procedural or
Mhm.
infrastructure. Anyway, because I always think people that have huge customer service systems and wheels and whatever, I always think their infrastructure must be really untidy, really untidy.
So if you get to the point where you're bringing on a salesperson or a virtual assistant or a businessman, no matter who you're bringing in, right? You're bringing in another person. And every single system you have set up so far is set up in here. Guess what you have to do before they can do anything?
You got to put that out. You got to
Mm-hmm.
put that out and create some kind of a working framework,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
And doing it all at once is way more painful than doing it as you go.
What happens is when you do it as you go, the tendency to generalize, in my opinion, the tendency to generalize is not to your benefit, because then you're kind of doing it with this person in mind that you've just hired. And that's really not what you want to do. You want it to be, regardless of who's sitting in this seat,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's Ben or Jamie or Sally, this is what is
Mm-hmm.
needed from that.
So when it comes to, so there's parts of that. So when you're doing your sales part, when you're talking to a person about selling yourself, not in that way.
Until I saw you wink.
I was like, I said that wrong.
I knew what you meant. Go for it. I knew what you meant.
But when you're sitting there, you create your contract, right? You create the sales process. Now, Mr. Sally, Sue, whoever that you're selling to may need specific clauses in their contract that somebody else might not.
Okay.
And what I would recommend is you have a boilerplate contract that fits everybody. And then you have a list of conditions that happen wherever you put them. I would put them in Notion just because then they'd be in that one spot and I could go to them and say, okay, this is the paragraph we put in if they have a giraffe. This is the one we put in if they have a panda. Look, if they actually have these animals, they should probably get arrested, but not my problem right now. But those you put those paragraphs in if that's the situation you're working on. Then it fits into, you've created a unique contract for that person, but you are not changing every single word or having to come up with a new contract for every single person.
So you're just giving an amendment
You're
or an
adding in a
addendum or an amendment
clause.
for a couple
Mm-hmm.
people.
Yeah.
Or an asterisk is probably more appropriate
Or just
because
adding
the
a number
foundation of
or
that
whatever.
area is applicable to them, but there's an asterisk. Nikki also does this, or Nikki also can do that.
Or it's due to this customer needing to be government approved. Everybody working on this project has to be government approved. And so that means everybody that works on that project has to have a background check and be kosher with government rules, which means no felonies.
See, I think in the private sector, you might be able to get away with that a lot easier.
Yeah.
I spent 30 something, 32, 33 years in the healthcare industry, but I was in building management. I wasn't a clinician. But because it was such a large organization, you weren't able to put those asterisks or personalize some of those for people as you scaled and as you grew. It was just business, the business of this is it. And whoever is in that role, that's what it is. So it removes the human factor, to your point of creating an asterisk for special needs, but
I believe no matter how big a business gets, that every contract should have something that is specific to the people they're working with and is not just all boilerplate, because boilerplate doesn't cover every situation. It covers the most general of situations.
it
So that's
does.
my belief.
It does, but I have a contrast for you. I have another lens. If you have, let's say, 10,000 employees, that's tough to do. That's tough to manage when you have that many asterisks, so to speak. So I think there's room for both, and I think it depends on what
Your
yeah,
your
I think it
employees wouldn't necessarily get that. It would be the people you're selling to. And the
okay.
caveats for them would be they are giving us X product for Y whatever, right? And so it would have to be that caveat would have to be there to be because you have to mention what you're doing.
So in
And
that
for me,
respect, you're right, I would do a 180 and reverse that because the contract does need to be specific. So yeah, I would agree
yeah.
with you on that.
An employment contract is
Yes,
you boilerplate that to the position. So if you are a salesperson, you have this contract. If you are a customer service person, you have this contract. You go
correct.
by that the seat that they have, not the specific person, because that would be too much. Yes, that's not what I meant. No, if you have a business that has 120 employees and you have different clauses for every single one of them, you're going to screw something up because you're going to miss a clause. You're going to
It's just a
like,
matter of when. It's not if,
yeah,
it's when.
yeah.
Yeah,
So making the contract be for the seat that they're in instead of the person that they are makes much more sense on that side.
yeah.
But when you're working with a business, another business, and they are giving you a product or a service or whatever the heck, I don't even know, and you have a contract with them, it can't just be boilerplate
No, you're
because
right.
you
That
have
needs
to
to be
mention
contract
what is being
specific.
done and all
Absolutely.
that good stuff. So,
Absolutely. I agree with you on that.
but having that boilerplate, these are the minimum requirements for any contract we go for. And then you add in all of the, okay, for this specific company, this is what we're doing. We are going to do 700 social media posts for the year. And they'll be scheduled out within the first 6 months or something. I don't know. But that's something that would be more specific to that one company and wouldn't necessarily go to the next company if you do something different. Maybe you do a web page for them. But it may just mean copying, pasting different paragraphs in and out.
No, I agree with you on that, Nikki. Yeah, I agree with you on that. I don't know scaling for growth and things like that. I don't know that on a level for a small business and scaling for growth. I don't know that I haven't experienced that. I did a little bit with a magazine I worked with. We
Mhm.
built a team. So we started there, but then we were going to kind of hang there for a while unless things just blew up. But
Mhm.
so I didn't get to dive into scaling from that perspective. We did a little bit when again, in my working career, but I've been retired now for a few years. So I no longer work in that field.
So, a good example of that is I have a telephone. I have people who have this phone number, unfortunately, in some cases. I am responsible for answering my phone and taking care of whatever the problem is on the other line, right? I have to answer that. If I don't put boundaries in on, dude, it is midnight. I am not taking this phone call right now. Thank you very much. Go away. That's a business call that is not happening at midnight. I don't know what your problem is, but there's not enough of a work emergency that could make me want to answer my phone at midnight. There's just not. I'm awake, but that doesn't mean I want to be working. But if I had weak boundaries, if I allowed everybody to call whenever they wanted to, and I interrupted meetings to take phone calls because people were calling me, then as I grew bigger, I would have more problems and things would break down, right? You can't be doing that kind of thing. You can't have weak boundaries and scale at the same time. You can't have weak boundaries and have more than two friends.
You can have more than two, Nikki, but you got to be firm with those boundaries.
Yeah, you have to have good boundaries to have good friendships, right? And if you're going to have multiple friendships, you for sure have to have some good boundaries because people will walk all over you. And if everybody's walking all over you, ain't none of them your friend. And
You
I'm
know,
not,
I never had that issue, but I've always had this strong personality. I think I got it from my dad, and my son has it as well. So I would hear people talk about setting boundaries, and I don't know, I think I came with them, Nikki. I think I came with, I think I was one of those few people who just came with boundaries. And the older I got, the more comfortable I became with being able to hold those boundaries, which includes being able to say no. My younger sister, love her to pieces, right? But she can't tell anybody no. And people in our family, I think, take advantage of it because they know she won't say no. She can't say no. It will break her heart to tell you no if you ask her for something. She can't. And then she'll be really upset to do it if she didn't have the time or the means, but she's going to do it because she cannot tell you no. And I look at her and I say all the time, you have to learn to say no. You have to learn your boundaries,
I
and she just
am,
can't. So
I'm still
I've
working on the no thing.
decided in her case, she just doesn't have that muscle. I
Hmm.
came with it, but she didn't get it.
And that's the difference. Some people are, maybe it's Maybelline. Maybe she's born with it, right? But that kind of thing happens all the time. If you have to work on your boundaries to keep them in place, work on your boundaries. I am working on my boundaries because I have a hard time telling people no because I have been gaslit. I have been told that I am being selfish. I have been told that I am such a bad person because I said no to something. So I am learning to put those boundaries in place and stick to my no, to stick to the I'm not answering that right now and you can call tomorrow at some point because I can't do everything. I can't. But
I
it's
don't
stuff I
recall.
had to learn how to do because I have been stomped down in the past for saying no. So it's one of those things.
And I guess a lot of people have what you have, where they've had those experiences. My
Mhm.
experiences were different. Mine were misjudging, so to speak. Don't judge the book by its cover.
Oh,
Because
I judge every
I'm a
book by its
dainty,
cover.
petite person as far as a person, right?
Mhm.
And my childhood, where we grew up poor on welfare, the illegitimate kids across town and all of that, is drastically different from my adulthood. I had married my high school sweetheart. He became a nice homicide investigator. I started my career with the healthcare, and we lived in the suburbs and in a nice estate community. And my son was on the swim team and went to private schools and blah, 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 blah. Completely different contrast to growing up poor on welfare. Completely different. So when
Mhm.
people see, but I carry both of those with me all the time. I have both of those with me. When people see me sometimes, if I'm dressed to the nines, they only see maybe someone who is comfortable, privileged, whatever. They don't know or see that other side of me who I always carry with me. You can look at me, and I wrote one of my stories years ago. It's not available. It's called The Princess I Am Not. The Princess I'm Not. And I wrote that because a lot of people at one time where I worked, it was my way of purging and figuring out, why are these people coming at me a certain way and they think this and they think that. It's like what they don't know is I learned how to play tag and hide and go seek in a cemetery because my grandmother's apartment, at her backyard, when you jumped the fence, you were in a cemetery. And so we used headstones as our hiding spaces. So it was nothing at all for me and my uncles and cousins to go and play tag in the dark in a cemetery.
I don't believe in ghosts or anything, but that totally creeps me out. I don't like
Right? And so I'm
cemeteries at
just
all.
saying, you never know. So while
But
you have the boundaries, I'm good with that one. But the other one is my issue, is make an assumption about me, and
looking at
you're
me,
likely
you
not
would,
going to be right.
most people look at me, I am a white person, so I must have had a privileged childhood. No, one of the elementary schools I went to was in South Boston. I don't know if you know this, but South Boston is not made up of this color of people.
Really?
I was the only white person in my school. Teachers, office staff, everybody
Wow.
was not white. Yeah, that was that. And I was bullied by
Wow.
teachers and staff and everybody.
That's almost unfair.
I get told all the time I have white privilege, and I'm like, no, no, no. Or I get told black people can't be racist. I am so sorry, sweetheart, but yes, y'all can be. I'm not even trying to be whatever, but I've seen it firsthand. I got bullied by a principal, okay? Because I was different than him.
Wow. Wow.
And that whole black people have never held offices of power. Yes, you have.
Wow.
So I get a little heated when people say that to me because I'm just like, I am the wrong one to come to with that problem.
That is so funny. Wow. That had to be shocking for a kid. Shocking. You hear stories of when it's reverse, but I feel like it's the same thing. It's just reverse. I think Chris Rock, the comedian, says that he went to all white schools and whatever. When my son in my suburban, yeah, as an
Mm-hmm.
adult, he was the only it made me think of a story because I'm black or African American, black, whatever. I'm both. And he was on the swim team in this nice suburban neighborhood. And so sometimes people would say on a swim meet, well, you might have 45 minutes in between your next swim. You don't swim every event or every skill set. You might do the
Mm-hmm.
butterfly or the best breaststroke or whatever. So there may be breaks. And so during the breaks, often I would just be sitting under an umbrella reading in the sun or whatever, and with other parents, and they would say, "So who's your kid?" And it was so easy to just say the black one because he's the only one. There'd be 300 people there, and there's only one black kid. So it was an easy question and
Mm-hmm.
an easy answer, but I think we have a cancel society, and if you say that nowadays, somebody is going to take issue with it. Or to me, like you said, it was what it was. The
Mm-hmm.
black people had issues with you. The principal had issues with you. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Who's your son? He's the black kid over there. Course that
Just,
we're on, if you think it too heavy, that you can't say things anymore in our culture, in our
oh yeah,
society
I've been told
sometimes,
I'm
rather.
racist because I've told that story to people, and I'm like, I'm racist because I was because people were racist to what?
So
How
here's what
does
I think on
that
that.
work?
I think, imagine if there were no stereotypes.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if there was no racism, not in a bad way, but what I mean it like this in a light way. I think that probably, and I'm just going to be random, pick white people. They probably say jokes and talk about things in their family behind closed doors that are just lightweight funny, not meant to harm anyone or
Mm-hmm.
anything. I think similarly, black people do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think similarly, Jewish people may do the same thing. I
Mm-hmm.
think similarly, Middle Eastern people might do the same thing. When they get into their family dinner and we're all at the dinner table together, they may make a joke that typically may happen with a white school or a white person and vice
Mm-hmm.
versa. I don't think that you should be called a racist and nailed to the wall for that. I just don't. And I remember when our nation was under the whole Black Lives Matter issue, that was very sensitive. I understand that. Very sensitive and very foul and very wrong what happened to George Floyd and other people as well, right? Breonna Taylor and so on and so
Mm-hmm.
forth. All wrong. I'm only giving you the platform of that. I don't want to go dive into that. But one of my friends who happens to be white called me out of the blue and said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, what do you mean? Why would I not be okay?" And they said, "All this Black Lives Matter stuff going on." And at that moment in time, I didn't watch a lot of TV and didn't know just how escalated everything was at that moment, in all
Mm-hmm.
fairness to this person who called me. And I said, "I don't know. My first reaction is I kind of feel like all lives should matter. So I don't know." And then I started watching the news. But the point is, all that to say, to bring you back to the point, I don't think one group of people versus another group of people should be able I think we can equally call all of us racist if that's the way it's going to go. But what else are you going to refer to me as? I'm a Black woman or I'm an African American woman when you call me a Black woman. Okay, I'm good with that.
As
So
long as I don't use the
all I
word,
know how to
we're
be.
fine. As long as I don't use that one word, I think we're fine. And I don't use that word. That's
Yeah.
not in my vocabulary.
Are you
Except
talking about
when
the
I'm,
N word?
yeah.
I have to be careful. It doesn't, it does not, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't offend me, with the caveat.
Mhm.
My grandmother grew up and she saw Black men hung from trees and burned, literally set on fire for things that they were accused of doing and
Mhm.
so on and so forth. Her perspective and context around that word and everything is different, and it is what it is. It is what it is. We don't use it, say it, she's gone now, but we don't use it, say it, or whatever around her. It is something different.
Mhm.
For me, if people were to call me that, I'm just like, you got to come better than that if you want to offend me.
The only time I've ever said the word was when I was talking about my sister's mess up. So my older sister was learning states and countries. So like Nevada was her Nevada.
Nevada.
So she would say Nevada. And for some reason, that's still stuck in my head. And every once in a while, somebody will ask me something. I'm like, yeah, Nevada. Nevada.
Funny.
I have to like
That's funny.
correct myself. And then Nigeria was her other one. And you can fill in the blank of what I can't say there with an A at the end. Full word and then an A. And so it was, you can't say that. Your school is full of Black people. You can't
Right.
go to
And you
school
know what?
saying
And
that.
I am going to bet you that there are tons of kids learning who have made that same,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah,
my
but she again
brother,
was the only white person in her class, 4 years older
and it
than me.
doesn't make her a racist in my mind.
No, it was
It's
just the
yeah,
word she was trying to
right.
learn, but it was absolutely not the place to learn that
Right.
word
When we
for
were
her saying
younger,
it
I
that
have
way.
one of my brothers who's no longer with us. He was killed. Anyway, he was one of those really rambunctious, speak his mind kid. Like when my mother was pregnant, he would just say in the middle of the grocery store, "So is that because you're pregnant, Mama?" But whenever we would get chicken, Kentucky Fried Chicken, I'll just say, change the T to an F and sound that out in your head. Did you get it? That's what he called it. That's what he called it all the time. When we would drive by anywhere and we'd see the KFC, his Kentucky was Ken with an F, always.
Yeah.
Didn't make him a bad kid, but he was mischievous for other reasons, but that's how he said it.
The one last point I wanted to make on our actual topic, because we went way off of it. I tend to
sorry.
do that a lot. It's a
I'm
thing.
sorry.
It's fine. But if you have tech that you either don't understand or it just works how it works, so you don't understand how any of it works, you're going to have a problem when you're scaling. If you don't understand it, if you don't know how to use it now, you're not going to be able to use it when you have more people. So getting somebody to help you with your tech is very important.
Thank you. Thank you. And I do have a person, it hasn't hit the top of my priority list, but I am going to get it. I'll get it together for you, Nikki, and I'll get that to you.
It's a call out. I'm just saying it is important. That is the type of person I work with usually, though, because I do understand tech.